Seconds here on the program. This is going to be a fantastic program. One of the later opportunities for you to meet two stand-up guys here on Real Talk presented by Yes Realty Partners. Just a fabulous Friday, a glorious day to be alive here. I mean, it is beautiful outside. To have this kind of weather in October, just a gift from the Lord. Very excited for today's program. Judah Wickower, 10 plus years, is my right hand. Love this guy like a brother. We are in your hands, my friend. Good Friday morning, guys. My name is Jerry Miller, and welcome to Real Talk, an insider's guide to real estate, life, and the pursuit of happiness. Of course, we're live in Charlottesville, the Commonwealth, the country, and the world on the I Love Seville network. Real Talk presented by Yes Realty Partners and a number of trusted advisors on the real estate supply chain. Just look at the bottom of the screen, guys. No matter the social media platform you're watching upon, and you will see names and businesses that you can count upon. Judah Wickower is a director. If we could start with the studio camera first, my friend, and we will welcome three community leaders and stakeholders. Of course, Keith Smith, Mr. Brian Pinkston, and Mr. Juan Wade. Good morning, gentlemen.
Good morning.
Morning. Thanks for having us.
It's a pleasure. It's a pleasure to have you. One of the last opportunities to see this community and the folks that we all think are going to be front runners for Charlottesville City Council. At a time where we need some stability, we need rocks, trusted advisors, all qualities you guys embody undoubtedly. Mr. Juan Wade, we will start with you. For the few folks, I mean, you are Mr. Popularity here. For the few folks who do not know Juan Wade, please introduce yourself to them.
Thank you, Jerry. My name is Juan Diego Wade, and I'm a candidate for the City Council for the great city of Charlottesville. I tell people that I've been a humble public servant for this great city for the past 30 years. Grew up in Richmond, Virginia, did my undergraduate work at Norfolk State, one of those who came here for grad school, got my master's degree in urban environmental planning, met my wonderful wife of 28 and a half years, and my wife and I have been serving this community since day one. From the time I was in grad school, I've been serving this community, whether it's mentoring, whether it's being leaderships or nonprofits, which right now currently I'm chair of the board of the United Way of Greater Charlottesville. Currently a member of the City of Charlottesville School Board and have been for the past 16 years and mentor literally hundreds of young people in this great city and great community. I'm running for City Council because I love this city. I feel that the last 30 years has prepared me for this moment, whether it's my background in connection relationships with the University of Virginia, with the County of Albemarle as a 30-year employee of the county, whether it's the numerous nonprofits that serve in this great city, working and volunteering with them, whether it's mentoring, whether it's my current position helping individuals find jobs and connecting employers with those jobs. I feel like I'm ready to serve this city, and I'm asking for people to vote for me on November the 2nd, or you could have started, I guess, about a month ago. I'm ready. I'm prepared to serve this city from day one to start the turnaround. So thank you again, Jerry and Keith, for this opportunity.
I just got chills.
Yeah.
Brian, tell us a little bit about yourself, sir.
So Brian Pinkston, we've lived in the area for 17 years in Central Virginia. I'm married. My wife's name is Flynn.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Yeah, Flynn?
Flynn.
Okay.
Like Errol Flynn. She was named after a great-grandfather, I think. 3 young adult children, very lovely human beings. I'm really proud of them. I work in facilities management over at the university, so I have a very grounded sort of daily life and the work that I do there, renovations and maintenance type projects there. My background, I went to school at Georgia Tech, so I'm an engineer, a mechanical engineer, and most of my professional life has been spent doing project management. And I like to say project managers put people, resources, and ideas together to get things done. And that's what I aim to do if I'm on city council. What brought us here, like so many other people, like Juan just mentioned, was the University of Virginia. I came here to do graduate work in the humanities and did that for 8 years. It took a long time to actually get my PhD. Finally did, and continued to work in facilities after that. So I do bring, I think, kind of a unique, eclectic kind of perspective in terms of a very practical work that I do, and also having these passions in the humanities. My goal, like Juan's, I think, is basically to bring a voice of stability, a perspective of compassion, one of thoughtfulness as we engage the city at this point. I'm running because I feel like I have something to contribute in that regard. I'm running because I care for the city and want to do all I can to help move it forward.
Well said, Brian.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
So this is kind of an informal. We're going to toss out a couple of questions, and then Jerry's fingers are going to go on fire because the feed will kind of guide us through the rest of the conversation. But I'm going to start with Juan Diego, if you don't mind. Juan, you have some background. You've been in public service for quite a while, but your top 3 achievements or skills or talents that you possess that will be able to take the city to the next level. Let's face it, when you get seated or, if you should be elected, next year is going to be a bit challenging. So what skills do you have to bring to the table that folks may not know about?
Yeah. So top 3, I feel like I bring many, but I think...
Okay, go more than 3, whatever you want to do.
We'll do 3. One would be just my knowledge and experience in city and public governance. I've been in public employee for 30 years, and my background in planning and city management, government, I would feel like I'll be able to come in from day one and have knowledge of that. Number 2, which is very important here in Charlottesville, I bring a wide depth of relationships to the table that I have fostered and nurtured for the past 30 years. And those relationships through all aspects of the community, all corners, not only in the great city of Charlottesville for the 10 square miles of Charlottesville, but also in this region as serving as president of the State School Boards Association, working with school districts in this area, working with parents, different stakeholders throughout the county and the city. I will bring that to the table on day one. And third, I think that I will bring my background in working with businesses and individuals in job readiness. That is something I've been doing for the past 10, 12 years, working with individuals, finding out what their skill set is, and placing them with jobs and opportunities in the community, and also with businesses to find out what do you need to prosper, what do you need for your business, what can we do as for me in my current role to make you as profitable as possible. And we want them to, be profitable because businesses, they not only provide services, but they hire our residents. They pay, and then therefore they can have those opportunities for housing or to make purchases and things like that. So those are things that I think I will bring to bear on day one, and I'm looking forward to doing that.
So you know what?
Yeah.
Can I give you that?
Yeah.
Juan Wayne.
Thank you.
Juan Wayne. Thank you.
You didn't know we had sound effects.
I love it, Juan Wayne.
He has a different one for me, by the way.
Okay.
I'll give you the props one.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Brian.
Let's let Brian answer it.
Yeah.
Before we start going Batman and Robin.
Yeah, well, this is fun. Top 3 things that I think that I bring. I've mentioned project management, and that is a skill set. It's a type of thing you can get trained in and spend decades in a career working on, and I think it is something that will help the city right now. Project managers can work in all kinds of different fields. I've spent most of my career in manufacturing and in construction, but you can do project management in all kinds of types of subject domains. And what you learn to do is basically it's all about how to corral and herd cats, really is what a lot of it involves, and listening well to stakeholders, finding out ways to engage every voice, and then finding common ground and moving the ball forward, to use a sports analogy. And so that's the world that I live in, have lived in, a very practical, granular sort of perspective of how we face a need, an opportunity, and then take advantage of that and address it and move forward. A second thing that I mentioned this earlier, I studied philosophy and theology in graduate school, and it is, I think, a unique sort of blend to have the very practical project management, engineering perspective, and then also this, more abstract set of skills or ways of looking at the world. And I think the humanities are really important, particularly in this time and space. People focused a lot on money, people focused a lot on social media and all the immediate things, but studying the humanities, I studied philosophy, there are other, fields in the humanities, obviously, but I feel like it gives you a sense of perspective on the issues that we face now in our community and people just in general. The third thing that I would say is just the community that I've been able to build, my wife and I have been able to build here with our church that we're a part of. And my own faith, it continues to remind me of my need for others, and it continues to remind me of my need for compassion myself and for other people. And so I want to be compassionate, thoughtful, and effective. Those three things are important to me. Okay. Thanks. And so those are the things I think I bring.
So this is the first time we've met each other, Brian, and I've been following you, but
He's a good dude. Yeah.
I'm a recovering developer and builder. So,
okay.
So as those who know me, I'm probably on my first step, though I say I'm really on my 10th step of recovery. But, you mentioned something which made me think, in order for you to do your job as project manager, you have to work with others to get it done. You can't be the sole person to build this multi-million-dollar structure or whatever facility you're doing. So that's an interesting set of skill sets to bring in. Juan, Diego, I'm going to kind of pivot a little bit because regionality is very important to me. I sit on enough regional boards, and we work together. So talk a little bit about how you would see the city and Albemarle County in particular, and the other counties around it working together, because this is a real estate show. We're going to eventually talk about affordable housing, right? But how can we work together collectively to make the whole better? Does that question make any sense?
It does, sir. And so that is something that I've been talking about for the past, 10 months, is that Charlottesville is doing a lot in the arena of public housing, but we can't do it alone. Little Charlottesville, 10 square miles, little but mighty Charlottesville. Affordable housing is a regional issue. There are low wealth individuals in all of our surrounding counties, and they have affordable housing issues too. And we must work together to address it, because if not, if we're the only shining light, then that's addressing it, that's where everyone will come. And so we must work with other regional governments. And I'm glad the University of Virginia is also jumping in this fray as well to address it. And I want to add, by the way, is that, as the co-chair, the original co-chair of the University Community Working Group, that affordable housing was one of the issues that we said that University of Virginia must take on. And I'm happy to say that they're working now to build up to 1,500 affordable housing in the next 10 years, I believe, and hopefully soon a site and more information will now be forthcoming. But the University of Virginia understands that they're a player in that. The county is doing more with Southwood and other initiative. We must move this work together instead of in silos. So regionality is important. Kind of with my planning background hat on, that we see that Virginia is just a little bit different from, when I was in UVA planning school, one of the things that we looked at is that how Virginia is set up than places like Florida and North Carolina, where Charlotte and Mecklenburg County, they have kind of formed just, regional government. And I'm not saying that we do this, but, and we see the difference that make in Florida with Duval and Jacksonville, and they've kind of moved forward. Here, it's very individual, where it's Richmond, Chesterfield, Henrico. Here it's Charlottesville, Albemarle. It's certainly a lot that we're doing together now. As someone who's been a 30-year employee, I can tell you every day that there are initiatives and things that's going on that, because it's positive and it's going forward, you just don't hear about it. We just did, I'm working with one right now with the city, the Go Cook program with Antoine Benson. Well, we are the city.
He's the man.
Antoine is the man,
yeah.
Yes. Well, the city and the county, we're working together. The city had the Go Cook program. Why will we reinvent the wheel and have our own program? The city invited us in to have this, participants from the county in. And it's working great. We're training individuals to better their lives. Things like that are all already going on. What I would do is these are the things that's going right. Let's embolden that. Let's expand that. And so we're doing a lot together already, Keith, as individuals. But what's getting highlighted is, things that maybe not working well together. It's a lot more that we can do, and as someone that's been involved, that's been in that mix for many years as a transportation planner for the first 20 years for the county, and now as a career counselor at the Career Center, I'm ready, and also just my other involvement with other nonprofits with the University of Virginia, with my fraternity. I'm ready to bring all those relationships, experiences forward to move the city and ultimately this community forward. Because if the city is not prospering, then this community is not prospering. We have to move together, the city, the county, the university. Because if there's bad news about the city, that reflects bad upon this whole community. And so we have some work to do, but Brian and I, we're prepared to do that work. We understand what we're getting in for, and we're prepared to do it. We're doing it because we love the city, and it's worth, every blood, sweat, and tears that we're going to have to move forward to do that. But we're ready for that challenge.
So Juan Diego, thank you for the work that you did with UVA on that. I'm actually on the community engagement team on that as the chair of the Regional Housing Partnership. And we were in a meeting yesterday, and I actually brought this up that I was the only community person there. Everybody else was UVA. So if you should win and you get seated, they are looking for the city to engage. So hopefully at the council level they'll engage. Brian, it's pretty much the same question to you. We're, as Juan Diego said, we're all kind of attached at the hip here, right? I know you're running for the city council and your constituents in there, but what about regionality? How do you think about that? What's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, we are a whole, right? We're connected in all of these ways that really don't stop at a county line or city line.
Invisible line.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so I think most people are aware of that, and I think that people want to see elected officials across the board actually get stuff done. And I think that there's just a lot of appetite among the public for the kinds of collegial relationships that we on City Council can build with folks at the university and folks in Albemarle County. And so that's honestly one of the things I'm looking forward to the most, is being able to work with these other partners to move things forward. I do feel like the Thomas Jefferson Planning District Commission does a really great job of setting the framework for some of these things, like around housing, for instance. It's sort of a neutral and fair arbiter, and I think can speak to these things in a way that's got a little less emotion sometimes, and which is what we need. Emotion's important, passion's important, but also thoughtful answers are important. And so I would want to see us continue to work with that. That said, we do in the city, we have our own responsibilities to take care of the people that live here, and we don't ever need to set that aside. And so I've continually voiced my support for the Affordable Housing Plan, which was endorsed by City Council back in March. I think that that's a great first step for us to demonstrate in Charlottesville that we really do care about affordable housing. And then you have the future land use map, which is his own other kettle of fish.
That kettle of fish is coming in on the feed right now, Brian.
Yeah.
And so I guess we do need to think regionally. I think that we're really fortunate right now that with the university, with President Ryan,
Sure.
and also with folks in Albemarle County, that there is a hunger for us to work more closely together. And I honestly feel like, the folks who likely will be on council in January, there will just be a natural connection there.
Timing is everything, and I think the timing is right. Anything on the feed there?
Oh, tons of stuff on the feed, but I have questions for you guys. Turmoil, open seats in City Hall. We got 2 more coming November 1. We won't say who. That'll come up in the news in time. How do we fill these positions, guys? They're going to look to you. You guys are the front runners. Councilor Snook, Councilor Payne, Councilor McGill, to keep this organization consistent. Brian, you said something, and I bring this up constantly on this network. I'd say at the beginning of this year, I want to be the guy that's making impactful, positive progress in the community, but whose name is not in the news all the time.
Yeah.
That resonated with me.
Yeah.
How are you guys going to fill seats and open positions in City Hall when, we'll cut to the chase, a lot of people don't want to come here to work right now?
Yeah.
Is that fair? That's fair, right?
Yeah, it seems to be I think it's fair. Well, these are very hard questions to answer, obviously. What I hope will happen and believe will happen is with a new council constituted, there will be not a turning of the page, perhaps, but a closing of one chapter and moving to a next chapter, where we can build on the things that we've learned or not learned in the last years, and really move forward towards something constructive. I know that even among the most energetic activists, there's a lot of pent-up demand for getting stuff done. I mean, you can talk with folks in the housing advocacy arena, and they want to see NDS get building permits done. You can talk with folks in the climate space, and they want to see a climate action plan come out of the city. So there's a lot of hunger in this community for getting some things done, and I think that we can harness that and build on that. And others have said something similar on your show. One of the things that attracts me, one of the things that terrifies me about running for city council is just, everything that you've just stated. But one of the things that excites me at the same time is the opportunity to help turn things around, to stabilize, and to learn from the critiques that we've heard from Mayor Walker in particular, to learn from those, to build on that, and to move the city forward in a way that's as just and equitable as we possibly can. In terms of actually personnel, I do believe that with a new council constituted, there will be a level of stability, there will be a level of thoughtfulness, and we can hopefully, start at that point and move forward.
What do you think, Juan?
Yeah, I concur. I think the most powerful thing that we can do to show leadership is, as a council, if Brian and I are elected to work with the existing council persons, is to be a strong council. Because before the most recent turmoil, there were turnovers and things, and those things happen, and people come and go, and we hire. But right now, because it's perceived that there's a void of leadership on council or turmoil there, everything's just kind of highlighted. So I think that if we can get together and work together and show that we're a strong council, because I concur with everything with Brian say, everything else will fall into place. And I just add, when I first got on the school board in 2006 or 2005, was very similar issues with the school board. We had just got over a big turmoil from a superintendent, and things just was not good with relations on the school board. And my running partner Leah and I, we made a concerted effort, that we were going to show that we were going to be a strong board.
Leah Puryear.
Yes, and it was a lot of work to do, but man, we have a strong board. We disagree as a board, but we know, I know that if I disagree with another school board member on something, it's not personal, because I know that person loves this city, they
Amen.
love the students, and they just looking at it a different way. And it's never after a meeting that we don't, talk or whatever. It's not personal, and we need to establish that with the city council. We just need to show that we're a strong board, that we can work together. We have some tough decisions to make, but a strong board, strong leadership. If we can do that, we'll get the city manager, the other, heads that's department heads that are open, and we'll be able to move this city forward. And we keep saying move this city forward because right now we have some tough issues to address. Some tough issues, Keith and Jerry, that we've heard constantly that's been addressed, and we can't ignore it. But Brian and I, we want to, instead of, right now I just feel like, it's just stirring. It's stirring. We want to say, okay, what do we have that's in here that's stirring? Get what we need to move on and move this city forward. And we believe that we have the skill set, working with the council, but most importantly, the great citizens of Charlottesville to move this city forward. It's going to be some hard work. It's going to be some tough decisions, but we have to do it. We don't have any other choice.
Right.
And more importantly, and I'm sorry I keep going on, but this is really important work that we're doing. Brian and I, we want to show that this is not a full-time job. We both have 9-to-5 jobs that we work, and we want to continue doing. And we think that when the ducks are in a row, this should be what it's supposed to be, a part-time job, and that's really important.
Well, Juan Diego, I've been doing this for 3 decades. I've never seen an elected official that was able to go ahead and do this part-time. It's a full-time job. I'm going to get a little personal, guys, because I had my next-door neighbor pull me aside, who's a city employee, who wanted me to ask this question. And you kind of dived into it about leadership. And, their particular department is not fully staffed up. They're working, and the term that he uses, please provide leadership. So what does leadership look like to you two gentlemen, and whoever wants to jump in first?
Yeah, I'll start. Leadership, to me, looks like, in this context, first of all, listening well to my fellow counselors if I'm successful. So,
Amen, brother.
So being thoughtful enough and empathetic enough and humble enough to listen to the other folks that are there and what they've gone through, and their ideas about the future, to build on that, as opposed to just coming in and saying, "Oh, I know what to do," because that's both untrue and unfair to them. So that would be a really important first thing for me. And also folks who are coming off the council, Councilors Hill and Mayor Walker, trying to understand from them the service that they've provided, how we can build on that. And then I think, too, once I've had a chance to sort of crystallize around that with Juan and with others, it's laying out steps that are sort of short-term, medium-term, and long-term, and articulating a clear vision. And for me, a clear vision right now for Charlottesville is having a city council that works well together, to Juan's point a second ago, where we may not agree on everything, but we treat each other with respect. We assume the best about each other. And then I feel like that kind of leadership, if you want to call it servant leadership, whatever term you want to use, can have a really powerful effect all the way down the line. If people within city government feel like the folks on council treat each other with respect, then they're going to feel the same, I hope. And then I think it will involve leadership. In this case, will involve making some really hard decisions. We're going to, unfortunately, have to start off our term by hiring some really important, filling some important positions. But for me, when I interview or when we talk about the folks who want to come, I want there to be like a passion and a willingness to just roll up your sleeves and realize that, yeah, we have our issues and our problems, but there's a lot more good in Charlottesville than bad. Yeah.
Juan Diego, leadership is, I think you epitomized that. But let's talk about your decision-making process, right? And how you're going to make decisions. Because as Brian said, you've got a heavy lift. I mean, this hiring the new city manager is going to be a heavy lift and take some time to get into it. So let's talk about your decision-making process.
So that's a good question. So we just recently did this. We did an international or national search for a superintendent, where we had, many candidates, and we narrowed them down and interviewed, and so we believe that, I am confident that we have, our next, superintendent for many years, Dr. Gurley. So I've been through that process before of, really leading a big organization. And so that process, for that, we had students involved, parents involved, teachers involved, principals involved. So you want to get input from all the stakeholders. And I understand that a lot of our meetings, we don't get, the public input from all corners of the community. With my relationships and connections, I know that what I do on the school board now, if a big decision is coming up, I know that we're going to get emails and potentially calls, and people will come to the meetings. But I also know that I'm going to reach out to maybe that family or that mother that can't come to those meetings, or reach out because they're working 2 or 3 jobs, to reach out to say, well, what do you think about this proposal? To call, or even with some of the youth that I'm working with, I'm mentoring, to say, well, this is impacting you. What does it mean? And so to making those tough decisions and making that process of making those decisions is that you have to get input from the entire public. And that is not, it's more than going about it one way. We, during the recent discussion on reconfiguration, it's a big decision. We haven't
$75 million.
75 million. We hadn't done this in 50, 60 years. And so it was to redo Buford. And so I worked with VMDO. I said, we know that we're going to get input from certain groups of people, but I know that, groups we're not. And so I went walking out with some of the project individuals, and we walked through the neighborhoods, and, people out on their porches, just happened to be in the 10th and Page neighborhood. I said, and as we were going, people were commenting on the projects and city government and things. I was like, these individuals probably would never come to a meeting or email, but you're getting input right now. I'm getting input. I'm hearing it. And this is how, sometimes you can have some official channels, but it's also a lot of unofficial. That's part of those relationships and being involved and connected to the community, that people will share their ideas. And so I have a lot of ideas about how we want to be more connected as a city council to rebuild the trust that we have, that we may have lost with the community. I want to be able to do that. So to kind of sum up how we're going to get input, it's going to be many different ways, and ways that we hadn't even thought of yet. But we need to make sure that we hear from every citizen as much as we possibly can on these big decisions that we're going to make.
You got a lot of stuff coming in right now.
I can see this gentleman's fingers rocking and rolling.
Yeah.
Leah Puryear is giving you some props.
Yeah.
Juan has been a wonderful partner on school board. He's a consensus builder and relates to everyone in our community, the CCS family as well. You got the DP, you got Neil Williamson from Free Enterprise Forum watching the program. You got the TV stations on the show right here. I got a couple questions for you guys, and then we'll get to the feed here. Chip Boyle's resignation. When Chip Boyles resigned, a few days ago? What went through the head? What went through the mind?
So I'll chime in because I worked with Chip when we were on the John board, and my first 20 years, we didn't work together at the Planning District Commission, but as a transportation planner, I spent many hours in the Planning District Commission, knowing the type of work that he does. And so, I just, part of me just said, you know what, that's another hill that we're going to have to climb once we, if we're fortunate enough to get on to serve this great city. There's another how it's going to make it. I'm not sure what the current council is going to do in the interim between now and
You got like 74 days.
Yeah. Well, I
think they're on the record. They're not going to start this until the new.
He's talking about an interim.
Yeah, we need someone, even, to kind of after the 29th to run the government until we hire a permanent, and I don't know how long that will take, but it's some work to do. It's some work, and we knew that, at least I did when I started this last spring of 2020, that being involved in this community for a long time, I knew it was going to be a lot of work. I didn't know it was going to be quite this much work.
I was going to say what?
but I know
careful
that
what you wish
yes, anything could happen. So,
what do you think, Brian?
Yeah, honestly, I was saddened and disappointed at a number of levels. I guess the primary level is I have a lot of respect for Chip. I watched some of the responses that happened in one of the the recent meetings, and was just saddened that he was in that spot, and saddened for our city that there's the level of, frankly, mistrust that you read some of the threads on Twitter, for instance. Not something I recommend, but if you do. Just the level of suspicion, I guess, and I don't know how we move forward through that exactly. It's something that the whole country is facing right now. I think my hope is that we can all be a little more gracious with each other, try to give each other the benefit of the doubt. I know that I will need that, and I'm going to try to demonstrate that to others if I'm elected. So yeah, sadness for him and for the city, and a level of, we'll have all this other stuff to do, and this is going to be one thing on top of it. But like I said earlier, I am drawn to a challenge, and I feel like the city's got so much more good associated with it, and so many wonderful things that are part of being here, and so many wonderful people that we do have a bright future. And we keep kind of, I think, tripping over our own feet, which happens, but I am hopeful and optimistic that we're going to be able to sort of draw a line under this and really build back. And I think that what Juan has mentioned in terms of listening to as many people as possible, gathering as much input, and I'm grateful, very grateful that he just kind of has a lot of that already. But the only other thing I would add on top of that is at some point, a level of decisiveness where we've listened, we've tried to be thoughtful, we've been as empathetic as we possibly know how, but when a decision needs to be made, that we make the decision, we live with it, and we move on. And so that is a place where I would ask the community to give us the benefit of the doubt when we have tried to do that, and we do feel like we're trying to move the city forward. Not everyone's going to agree with every decision we make, but I hope people can at least, believe that our intent is good.
So at some point, I really want to get to talking about land planning and the land use map and all this stuff. But I'm in sales. My dear friend is in marketing and sales also. How are you going to convince somebody even to apply? Right? I mean, this is all one's going to...
It's a branding challenge.
Yeah, I mean, this is what you do for a living. This is a tough thing to cross, and I think people are going to want to know how we're going to do that, or how is that going to be approached, because, I know a lot of folks in the industry or in the field that they may just not apply, that are rock stars, and we've got to figure out a way to get past this. And any thoughts, gentlemen, or not, or whatever you want to go with this real quick? But Juan Diego's smiling.
So you know,
You're always smiling.
it's no magic wand that would do it. I recall several years ago, you know, I'm trying to be environmentally safe, and I asked a friend's wife that, you know, she was involved in the green environment and everything. I was like, is there anything special concoction you can put together to get rid of weeds? I thought, you know, she was going to tell me, you know, put some vinegar and some honey together and spray it on it, you know, and they'll go away. She was like, no. You just need a good trial and a lot of determination.
Amen. A lot of elbow grease.
Yeah, so I just think that from day one, we just have to show the public and those who may be applying for these jobs that, hey, this is a new day here in the city.
And you're coalesced together in a common goal.
Yes.
Yeah, I really do feel like, and this is not to be kumbaya or whatever. I just think it's true that the other counselors who will remain on, and this is all assuming we pass through the November 2nd gauntlet, but the other counselors I got to know pretty well when I ran 2.5 years ago and lost to them. Mm-hmm. So they're people, I don't see the world in the same way that Michael Payne does, for example, or the others, but I respect each of them. I think that all three of them have stepped up and hung in there in the face of really difficult circumstances. Not only the recent upheavals, but just managing through COVID. And I think the whole council, honestly, the current council deserves credit for getting us through COVID.
I think that's fair.
That was a major thing that they deserve credit for. But I do feel like that with 5 people that have, you know, at least aligned on their intent, we can set an example, and it has to start at the top of, and again, this is not meant to be sort of a Pollyanna-ish, setting the example of what it means to treat each other with respect, and being willing to have the hard conversations amongst ourselves about what we think the city really needs. I think there's a lot of alignment there between the 5 people, and again, I think Charlottesville just has so much to offer, and it really depends on, you know, I think we want someone that's got the passion or the drive to come into a situation
and fix it
and help stabilize it. Well,
Yeah.
I think that, fix it. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Make it better.
Fix it is a good set of words. Yeah. It's broken. It needs to be fixed.
Yeah, so let me get to Neil Williamson here, President of Free Enterprise Forum. He's got a number of questions for you guys. And Neil and Sean Tubbs hosted a fantastic forum for you guys about a couple weeks ago. So Neil Williamson, on Tuesday, in addition to Chip's departure, Chip Boyles, I believe Mr. Boyles is watching the program now. On Tuesday, in addition to Mr. Boyles' departure, there was a long public hearing regarding the comprehensive plan and FLUM. Mm-hmm. We got to find a new acronym for FLUM.
Yeah, definitely.
As I predicted, this plan will be voted on by the current council. He has a zing for you. Sorry, Keith. You owe me a bottle of booze.
I do owe him a bottle of booze. There's a little internal bet. Yeah. Not so internal, but external bet going on.
So here's the question Mr. Neil Williamson has, and this is for the Free Enterprise Forum here. How will these 2 gentlemen respond when the zoning ordinance comes before them late 2022 with increased residential density, and residents are in opposition to such density? You have a number of them that are in opposition right now, literally on the feed, including Bill McKenzie, and a number of them that are in favor of this. I mean, this is as divisive, maybe that's not the right word. This is as challenging or controversial a topic as any in the city of Charlottesville. Is that fair?
Yeah. I mean, you know, up until the recent actions, it has been one of the more popular items that people have been asking us about. And what I would, you know, have said, and we have been contacted from people from housing advocates and those that kind of want things to stay the way that they are. I just have a couple of things to add to this, is that, you know, if the current council adopts the revised future land use map, and the new council then will kind of put the bones on it with the zoning ordinance, I am confident that, you know, as part of that zoning ordinance, we're going to have to go back and say, you know what, now that we're trying to put the details in it, that this part of the map has to be changed. or revisited. That it's going to be a dynamic process, which it has been since I have been more, involved with this as far as, as a candidate this spring. It's going through several changes. And even if the council adopts it, that I see the new council going back again, looking at it.
So Juan Diego, I just wanted to be clear so folks don't understand the process here, right? So are you saying that if the future council can amend the land use plan? Are you saying that?
Yeah, it's my understanding that, the new council, that even if the current one is adopted as we are doing the zoning ordinance.
Correct.
And it's been 10, 12 years since I've done the detailed work of updating zoning ordinance, that as part of that we can say, we need to go back and make some minor changes to the map, the future land use map.
So Neil Williamson will correct me if I'm wrong, because he usually does, and he does it very quickly. But it is an important term for folks to understand. No previous board can bind the hands of a future board. Is that correct? Unless it becomes an actual ordinance or something like that, you have to go through the process. Is that a fair statement?
Yes, that's my understanding.
So it's important for folks to know that there's a possibility that it could be changed once the new council sits. It's not a done deal. Is that a fair statement?
Yes, and I think I've even heard some current council or some current narrative that said that, that this is a dynamic process.
Correct.
That we, if we found, that some things that we want to change on the current map, that if it's adopted, as we're doing the zoning ordinance, that there may have to be some changes to it, and we're allowed to make those changes.
So the term I like to use, it's a living document.
Yeah,
right?
It's a living
that's
document.
Right. That's right.
It's a living document.
Yeah, I guess the only there's a number of things I would add to this topic. Wow, I just feel like in our world right now, everything has become controversial, and I guess things are. Maybe it's just a sign of how interconnected we are.
That's true.
It concerns me when I hear from homeowners who are just trying to live their lives and build their equity and everything else, that they're unhappy with the way a color is on the map. And it also concerns me when I hear housing activists say that they don't feel like there's enough density. I mean, not that I disagree with either one of those. It's the fact that there's this sort of I don't know if it's speaking past each other or not listening. I'm not sure, but I know thoughtful people on the I won't call it the pro-density side, but on folks that have advocated for greater density, that are very thoughtful folks and really are trying to improve the housing stock here. On the other hand, I can understand why people are concerned and afraid. I think one misconception with that map as it came out was it felt like to people like this was the plan, like we're going to take over Meadowbrook Heights and we're going to make it into a mixed use. Instead, it was really what it's intended was to set an envelope or sort of the parameters for future growth. And some may say that's a distinction without a difference, but I do think it's important to realize that just because something's on the map, it's not necessarily going to come about. I would just, having met folks from all over the spectrum on this topic, I just would, in an ideal situation, I would love to see people sit across a table, and I'm not talking about in the Zoom meetings we have with the Planning Commission, but actually sit across the table at a park, people who really disagree, and say, where are you coming from and how can we find ways to work together? Because I feel like on both ends of this, people want the same thing. They want a livable city. They want a place where housing is not out of reach for. And the other thing that we're having now is we have this sort of division between homeowners and renters, right? And I want to do everything I can to help everyone get the opportunity, if they want to own a home, because in the United States, one of the, as everyone knows, one of the main ways you can build wealth for the future is with your home. And so those who feel left out of that process, particularly younger folks, people that are renters, people that have wealth, like myself, I suppose, and that I own a home, we need to be thinking about, how we help people get on the first rung of the ladder. At the same time, just because someone looks at that map and is concerned about their own house doesn't mean they're necessarily a NIMBY.
Yeah, and I just want to add to what Brian said is that, we have talked to probably, not hundreds, but a lot of people over the last several months, and not one of them on both sides said, we're not for affordable housing. Everyone's that we talk to wants to support affordable housing, of course, but not here, or, this color is wrong. And so what we are going to have to do is that, we're just going to have to compromise. And I know that that's not popular, but we as a community say, we need to address the issues of affordable housing. And a lot of reasons that we have these inequities of things that's happened in the past, and we have said that in this community, we want to address those and move forward. And it's going to have to be some tough decisions that we're going to have to make as a community to do that, but I think that we can do that if we work together and we all are willing to make some compromises.
And the one thing I did want to tack onto that is we should not lose sight of the fact that even if the map doesn't change anymore, or even if one side or the other doesn't get more of what they want, we're moving to a situation where we're abolishing R1 zoning, and we're going to have by right 3 or 4, I can't remember where they are now in terms of quadplexes or whatever, that are by right. That's a major accomplishment, and I think it's easy for us to forget that doing that really does help turn the page on past racist zoning, and it also opens the door for greater density and hopefully reduced housing costs. And that's a major accomplishment, and most people that I know are basically okay with that at this point. It's some of the more specific things like medium intensity nodes. So I think that's something we should all celebrate, that we have been able to make that level of progress in any event.
So Juan Diego, this is your education, right? You have a master's degree.
Yes.
You have a master's degree in this. Most folks may not know the city of Charlottesville did not adopt an actual zoning ordinance until the late 60s. Some counties, such as Fluvanna County, did not actually adopt a zoning ordinance up until 74. And if you drive around some neighborhoods, Belmont just comes to mind, you kind of wonder, why are all these duplexes there? Why are all these triplexes there? Because they were built prior to the 1960s, which there was no zoning ordinance that said you can't do that. So I'm struggling with why the pushback is. Frankly, I'm pro density. I'm pro missing middle. I make no secret about that, because we need housing for all folks, and that end of it. But talk a little bit about the history, because this is up your bailiwick.
Yeah. So I did planning for the county, but this is more so that people are reluctant to change to their biggest investment, which is their home. And so we could talk about the zoning ordinance and things like that, but people see that orange, red, or whatever color in their neighborhood or next door to them, and it's like, this is the biggest investment in my life, and it's going to potentially impact that, and they believe it's going to be a negative impact. And so there has to be, we have to show examples of how this can be positive, of why we want to try to, make this change, but also do it in a way that, it won't be a negative impact, and to get input into maybe make that compromise. It's going to, as we are putting the skeletons or the zoning ordinance, so that is where we, and I know it's been some difficult conversations, to come with the future land use map. But when we're saying, okay, what does that mean as far as when we get a proposal in? That is where the true additional discussion will be coming in as well.
Yeah, and I will be clear too that a lot of people are concerned about things like traffic, water lines, sewer infrastructure, all of those things, and those are very legitimate concerns. And just because something is zoned for medium intensity does not mean that that developer or the city or whomever is off the hook for investing in the infrastructure that's necessary to do that. So in my mind, all of these things are predicated on thoughtful laws that take care of things like traffic, sewers, water mains, all of the infrastructure it takes that's oftentimes below ground to support the development that's above ground. So.
Well, there's 4 parts to this. There's the comprehensive plan, which is what we're talking about, the zoning ordinances, which is what's coming up next, then the actual subdivision or site plan ordinances, and then a topic that nobody's really talking about is the building codes will oversee some of this stuff.
Right.
So this is common in other states where they get the first 3 right, and the state building code says, no, you can't build it.
That's right.
So there's basically 4 pillars that you have to go through that.
Neil Williamson says, you're absolutely right. Zoning ordinance is an ordinance. It absolutely can change. You got a couple of current counselors on the feed right now. A planning commissioner on the feed as we speak. Rory Stolzenberg, if you have any questions, put them in the feed. Let me get to Mr. James Watson's question. Mr. James Watson, good friend of the program, is there any strategy you two can pursue to attract minority staff and key positions in City Hall and city schools?
Yeah, as an HBCU alum, I will be reaching out to those connections, and it's ironic that right before this started, I was working with the University of Virginia's planning school, that we were going to get a road show together to visit.
Like a recruitment type deal?
Yeah, to go to Virginia Union, Virginia State, Norfolk State, Hampton, kind of take care of in-state, and then we were going to go to North Carolina and talk about, some scholarships and opportunities there. And that just kind of fell apart during COVID. Hopefully we can pick that back up again. But we also have been employing those similar type of tactics with the school system. And for many years this has been a tough sell for young minorities to come.
Why is that?
Well, I know for my wife and I, at first, we were not planning to stay in this town for a long time. We were planning to stay here for a year or two and then potentially go to Charlotte, Atlanta, or DC, but Charlottesville got their hooks in us and we decided to stay. But I've been here involved for the last 30 years. There's countless number of young brothers and sisters that I've known that decided to leave, and they're doing great in other places. They just haven't felt as welcome, and many of them at the University of Virginia didn't get that tenureship and things, and that's another whole story. But many just felt that there wasn't enough, connections. It's not a big middle-class African-American community in this region, if you will, and that is, something that, we don't have a lot of kind of manufacturing type of jobs, and that's, and we talk about the missing middle. It's also the same with, certain classes, but I think that's growing. But that's something we just have to think outside the box in our recruitment. And we do have, have to offer, say that, what the city has to offer. And those are some different ideas of we can get together with smart individuals in the community, the city, HR, and just kind of, and I would think this can be another regional approach because, programs like the African American Teaching Fellows, where they're doing their work to address, the teaching shortage. We just need to come at it at a lot of different angles.
What do you think, Brian? That's a heck of a question from you, James.
Yeah, I think that the very first thing is showing that, demonstrating that Charlottesville city government is an employer of choice, or in other words, a place respected enough that people will, top flight talent is going to want to come. And I think that, again, it really depends on your perspective. You can see it as, something that's in a really terrible way and things are just awful and, how are we ever going to how are we ever going to be able to come out of this? Or you can look at it as just an opportunity. You know, we're in a situation right now that's not great, but we have the ability to come together to figure out what our common goals are and to move the city forward. And I think there are lots of younger folks, African American, other ethnicities, that would jump at a chance to come into a place where you might get the opportunity to be a little higher up in the organization right off the bat, because you're willing to come and you're willing to seemingly take a risk. You know, so I think there's going to be lots of people. I'm hopeful that want to see this as an opportunity, not as a completely negative thing.
So I'm in the housing space. This is Real Talk. This is about real estate. As you guys could see, I've got data in front of me. Just to put it in perspective, folks, last 30 days, sold in the city of Charlottesville, detached, the median sales price was $495.
Wow.
Attached was $230. How we're going to fix this, guys? Because you're going to be hopefully sitting in these seats to help do this thing. This is a question I get asked all the time. How can I afford to live in it? My next door neighbor is, look, I want to move back into the city. I can't afford it. How are we going to fix this, guys? I mean, it needs to be fixed, right?
Yeah, I mean, I guess it really...
You should have to quantify what fixing means.
Well, let's make it more equitable to other folks.
Particularly for those who are younger, folks who may not have had the traditional opportunities afforded to them of sort of entering the middle class. That's the piece that I worry about a lot with making home ownership so hard to achieve. Yeah, I will say that over the last 4 or 5 years, Charlottesville, and particularly the activist community, and my hat goes off to them for this, and folks that have been working in on the HAC and these other committees, they've put in a lot of time and effort to try to figure out, if not to reduce the pricing, to at least slow the rate of increase.
Well, let's face it. The only way that this is going to change is there has to be some sort of subsidy from the government to come in, right? In order to change there's only 5 attached products available for sale in the city of Charlottesville, and the median sales price is $375. So the only way that's going to work is everybody has to work together, and there's going to have to be some hard decisions at the city to include money.
Well, and I think that we have, and I don't think it's just one thing. I think that it's several. One is, which I think the plan is planned to do, is increasing the number of opportunities, the stock, if you will. And again, we can't do it all here in the city of Charlottesville. That's proposed to put $10 million aside for that. I think that would put us, we're already in top percentile of, government money towards affordable housing. That would put us in, if not top 2 or 3%, right up there. And so that's great, but what we want to see what are the other localities are doing. We are 50,000 residents. How does that compare? What other localities are doing? Again, we can't address this by ourselves. It has to be a regional approach, because if we're the only ones doing it, we're going to have other residents, and we want as more people to come here as possible, but we can't address affordable housing issue, the city of Charlottesville alone. And part of that is that we have to support our businesses, because if we want to get that $10 million, we need the tax revenue to do that. And not only will we get additional income from those businesses, but they'll be able to hire people at those wages that that they can afford the houses. And so we all have to move forward together. And it has to be, understand that if we are giving money towards, the downtown business or the corner, whatever, that is not taking the money away from affordable housing, is that, we know that every dollar we put towards that, that's going to be some additional money into the community that we can move forward. And
well, that's the reason regionality is so important, and I started with that in the beginning of my question.
Yeah, let me just ask you, what is the status, where is the Thomas Jefferson Plain District Commission what is this current state of the, I know that y'all were wanting to have a study funded to focus on the Regional Housing Alliance and partnership. I believe that was funded, right? And you guys are moving forward with coming up with some sort of
So you're
framework.
referring to the Regional Housing Partnership
Correct.
and the plan.
Yeah.
It was self-funded, by the
Okay.
way.
Okay.
And I'm happy to report we just got another grant to move a little further
Okay.
along
Cool.
with that process. But the city created its own
Okay.
affordable housing plan, and we helped the surrounding counties to do that.
Okay.
But that's the regionality of it, right?
Are the two talking with each other?
They're very much so. So
Okay.
at the table, which I'm the chairperson of it, we have every single one of the regional jurisdictions at this, and we
Good.
talk about this on the regional thing. But you know, let's be frank. Is the FLUM, or whatever we're calling this, is this going to help this? What we just talked about, that in your opinion, is it going to help fix it?
You know, let me chime in there, Brian. I believe that it will, you know,
You do?
I think that because it will provide additional opportunities.
More density.
Yes, and so I don't know exactly where it would land with what the current council will ultimately adopt, but when you have more opportunities, that is a good thing at that price point. Even, you know, that affordable housing at any point, because you get that movement that people can move to that next house or whatever, and then more housing will become available.
I'm going to push back a little bit for the sake of a talk show,
Yes.
if you don't mind.
No, sir. That's fine.
So Belmont, right? If I want to buy something in Belmont, and let's say the FLUM is enacted, let's say the zoning ordinance is in place, and it's sitting on top of that, and I want to do a duplex there, right, or a triplex there, I can't buy anything, even if I have to tear something down. Today's dollars for less than 150,000, probably way more than that. And I'm not quick with math, but if you take a lot and divide it into a $200,000 to $250,000 thing, divide it into three.
And there's no lots left.
What
Yeah.
they're talking about is you would buy a home to tear it down.
Right. And then build something else. That's going to be a wealthy person that does that puts investment property on there to cover his or her debt service of doing the work.
And that's my point. My point is they'll be at $350,000. They'll be at 300.
Probably way more than that.
I would agree with that.
Yeah.
I would agree with that.
Yeah, that is the risk with the FLUM. I mean, that is a risk in terms of, and I guess people are talking about this, maybe not as much as they should, but there is the risk that you could have developers come in, buy land, and
Speculate.
yeah, and then end up, well, yeah, speculate, but basically being good capitalists, right? And you know, come in at a knockdown price, buy something, and then end up with some of these houses that are around here that are really amazing. That are on these really narrow footprints that are 3 or 4 stories tall. So that is a risk, and I think it's something we're going to have to be very careful about as we do these zoning ordinances.
Yeah, I was gonna
because
say.
you can't just. I mean, they will need to put up or shut up, as far as I'm concerned, in terms of the amenities they provide. You know, all
Well,
of
that's
the
why
things.
the zoning ordinance is so important.
so important.
It's
And-
so important. Why don't you talk about that?
Right,
Randy,
and I
about-
think that's where that $10 million or as much money as we can put towards affordable housing to help, you know, the zoning ordinance should address existing homeowners who want to stay in there. I think it's part of that $10 million should go
that's
towards
right.
organizations like AHIP that's
Yeah.
trying to, or working with existing homeowners, doing improvements to keep them in their homes, but to write it so that to preserve the integrity of existing neighborhoods.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of other localities and, you know, individuals over at the university that can help craft that zoning ordinance, help us craft that zoning ordinance so that we can, you know, not get the gentrification that I think many of us fear, and that, you know, we've heard speculation that you write in all this, but, you know, developers and people with high wealth can say, okay, well, I'll buy this house and that house and just sit on it for 10 years or whatever until they get.
And that's
The
why,
lot, yeah.
that's why with the latest versions of the map, they call them specially protected zones, you know, places like Fifeville, 10th and Page, where they're not going to be able to be as dense, as I understand it, so that you minimize the risk of gentrification.
But you have to have the zoning ordinances to support that, because
That's
that is the obligatory thing. As you may or may not know, I'm part of a national cohort put together out in Portland. And one of the things that Portland did with this, to address this particular issue, is they offered tremendous amount of tax incentives to folks, so they would stay in their home and they would put in an auxiliary dwelling unit in the back.
Interesting.
And will you be willing to look outside the box
Sure,
and
yeah.
some creative thinking
Yeah,
to
absolutely.
help this? Any thoughts on that one, Diego?
No. One of the things that, I used to do a whole lot when I had more time, my wife and I, is that we would love to drive to different parts of the city and walk. And we've seen some wonderful examples of ADUs around town. and
Auxiliary
things
dwelling
like-
units.
I'm sorry.
Whereabouts have you seen it?
In Locust Grove.
Yep.
Definitely in Belmont, and there's some great opportunities there. And so, yes, we definitely have to look at,
Well, Juan
opportunities.
Diego, here's the problem, and you might be able to be seeing this when you're sitting on it. The problem with ADUs in the current city ordinance, it has to be owner occupied. So as the chairperson of the land trust, I can't do an ADU in the back of your home in Belmont. I don't know where you
Well,
live, but let's assume.
Even more bluntly, an ADU is going to cost a couple $100,000 to build.
That's the real problem.
I mean, it's rich people that are going to create ADUs.
And they
That's
fa-
not going to be people that are living marginally financially that are going to build an ADU in their backyard to help them cover their overhead.
So I'm part of this cohort for the National for ADUs, and what they found out in the western states is that until they adopted this new program that they put together, is the people that, if somebody's going to build a unit, like Jerry said, they have no idea what it's going to cost until it's done, because this is not the world that they live in. They're not project managers. They don't have a master's degree in urban planning. They're not in property management. They're not in PR. And unfortunately, they went out and borrowed money, and they're getting foreclosed on because they don't know how to do this
So I don't
business.
think the ADU is a legitimate solution to solving this.
But it's one step forward. It's an increase in density. But the situation will be the same if they say you can build a second unit in there.
We're not, again, gentlemen, we're not looking at one
There you go.
thing to solve this whole problem. But you know what? That may take care of, if we can get that formula right for ADUs, and maybe that'll take care of
10,
they said,
20, 30, 100, sure.
That's something, and another action will take care of something else. We can't look at it as one or two things that's going to solve it. It has to be, several approaches. And
So what my concern is that we're going to if we're trying in the zoning and all this stuff to try to get everything right. What does Jerry use? The perfect get in the way of the good.
Yeah.
We should tackle some areas to do this. And one of the things I've always been a proponent of is to try to come up with a plan so at least you can build some units that are not owner-occupied required, where the land trust or some other AHIP or PHA or Habitat can come in, and the person who owns the home can stay in their home.
Here's how I see. I'm a very straightforward person, fellas. You have the University of Virginia that's hiring more people than they've ever hired before. They're admitting more students than they have ever in their history.
Yeah.
You got mortgage rates at historical lows, generational lows. You got the New York Times saying Charlottesville's the best place to vacation on the East Coast
And retire.
because of vaccination rates. You got Realtor magazine saying baby boomers are moving here at the second highest clip of any jurisdiction in the country. I mean, I'm not trying to be a negative Nancy here, but I just don't see this problem being solved anytime soon.
And then you need to add all the Class A space that's coming up.
Yeah, you got Johnny Pritzloff and Jenny Stoner of Tallheimer in the 323 building just leased 49,000 square feet of Class A office space to a business that's bringing people in from outside the market to populate this 49,000 square feet of office space, and these people are paid bank,
big
and they
time.
need somewhere to live.
yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, we got
You're
10.2 square miles that doesn't have any inventory open.
Yes. So part of this, again, is we don't, as a local government, we don't have all of the answers, but we can work with organizations like PHA, Habitat, AHIP, the Land Trust, that is going to be a significant part of the solution, supporting them. If they have the opportunity to get some land, we can work with them to help them develop it. It just has to be, a wide range of solutions to address it. I hadn't heard some of those numbers, and part of me wanted to say, man, that's great, because in spite of everything that's going on, people say, yes, Charlottesville is still a place we want to come, but it's really can be scary if you're in some housing that that potentially could be sold, torn down, and rebuilt or whatever. It's like, what is that going to happen to me? And this is where we have to take a regional approach, because if they get moved out, they likely will go to the outskirts of the county. The outskirts of the city into the county, and so if we don't approach this on a regional basis, it's going to have it's really going to have that negative impact is going to kind of spread.
So one thing before you, excuse me, I want to dive in a little bit, because this is something that I've been pushing quite heavily at the regional level. Mm-hmm. Would either one of you gentlemen support a regional land bank where the city of Charlottesville and the surrounding counties get together, maybe under the auspice of the commission, Planning District Commission, to go ahead and do that? This is conversations that are happening in meetings that maybe Neil Williamson and Sean and Jerry Miller and myself are attending. Is that
Sure.
What do you think about that?
Yeah.
And what does that look like?
I'd like to know more about the concept and the legalities and of how that would all be set up.
It's pretty simple, Brian. The jurisdictions put it into a land bank, and then this land bank has its own.
But what land would Charlottesville put in there? You guys got no land.
That's exactly right. That's the reason. That's kind of why I asked.
That's why Charlottesville needs the other counties.
That's exactly
Charlottesville's got no land.
Yeah.
Well, that's why this regionality is so important, Juan Diego, so that even if you work together with it, and if Charlottesville is the heartbeat, you're going to have to work with Fluvanna, Louisa, Nelson, and Greene, and Albemarle County to help do that.
James Watson, Juan for city manager.
Juan is a lot smarter than that.
Yeah.
No comment on that one, Juan. That one.
Juan is a lot smarter than that.
So as far as the regional, that regional land bank, I really, at the beginning I was you saying yes to a lot of things I didn't know all the details about. It sounds good. I would, just kind of want more information.
Well, you're going to get it, because we're going to be pushing it your way.
Right.
So.
And I think that is the question is that, we are right now, Charlottesville is in the forefront, I believe, in affordable housing. So it really would be where other localities work with us. And again, right now, a lot of places are saying, you know what, they're just not in a good position right now with so much going on with the local government. I think that once we get our ducks in a row, it's going to be a lot of people saying, okay, I know for a fact there's so many people in this community sitting on the bench, ready to jump in and help out, but there's just a lot of reluctance right now. And I think that once, the new council is seated, that I think that a lot of people will jump in to help out.
Well, I would ask you guys to think seriously about that and look at it, because it's as Jerry very finely said, we don't have a lot of land left, so you're going to have to make relationships with other jurisdictions to help solve this problem at a regional.
I think the better approach is for the city of Charlottesville to kick some money into some kind of escrow account to fund a more improved and efficient transportation system. The city of Charlottesville realizes that there's no freaking available housing that's affordable here, so let's get affordable transportation that's reliable and consistent and allow its employees and citizens to live in the outer counties and commute more efficiently here without wear and tear and cost of a vehicle.
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing.
I mean, that would crush. Gentlemen, we've gone the entire interview without bringing up the police department. I mean, and maybe you guys were hoping the police department wasn't going to go. Police Chief Brackney, hasta luego, no longer in the city, right? You have PBA, we have secret recordings, we have rank and file officers that question leadership. We have FOIA requests that are currently happening by Police Chief Brackney, bringing up text message exchange with the Police Civilian Review Board Director. I mean, open-ended question, Mr. Brian Pixon, for you. Charlottesville Police Department, where do you want to start with that one?
Yeah, I guess where I would start, and I suppose this is, some might say, too idealistic, but I just would start with, what is it that we want? I think most people agree we want a 21st century police force where the goal is to serve and protect, not to occupy. And so understanding, having some sort of, and I'm sure there are independent outside entities that can come in and just take an assessment of your police force and see how they compare to that standard. I think that would be the first thing to really understand. I've always heard a lot about how terrible the police are or whatever. I don't know that I believe all of that, but I'm not a person of color who's lived in these neighborhoods, so I want to qualify it with that. But I would like to know, we know what we want in our police force. We want to have as least impact as possible with weapons. We want to treat mental illness as mental illness as opposed to a chance to escalate. We want to be in communities of color in a way that they feel respected. And so I would like to have some kind of independent assessment of where we are versus where we want to be, and then come up with a plan to get there and make it clear to whoever the next police chief that we hire that would be the first thing on their list, is to figure that out. Now, in terms of the Police Civilian Review Board, I've always thought it was a great idea. I can't speak to any of the more recent things that have occurred, but I will say over the time that it's been in existence, there's been so much turmoil around it from one source or another, and I would hope that if that board is reconstituted in January, that it just be very clear that the goal is to have some stability there, and stability in thoughtfulness in terms of how they engage with the rest of the city. And I think that, Lloyd Snook has talked about NACOL. You probably heard about this. I would want to make sure we're adopting best practices from these nationwide organizations that lay out what a good Police Civilian Review Board should be. I've always thought that the Police Civilian Review Board would be a good thing for not only those who feel like they need a court of last appeal protection, but also for the police to have a place where they can come and engage with the community in a space that's neutral and explain sort of why they've done what they've done in a given case. So.
I agree with what Brian said, and just to add, kind of with the police chief and things of that's going on around with that. At this point, Brian and I, just like the rest of the public, we don't have any inside information or, so it's a personnel thing. If we're fortunate enough to be on council, we'll be jumping into that fray soon enough. But right now, we know that the police department, I just heard this morning on NPR that, how Minneapolis is, voting, as to whether if they're going to have a police department and reconstitute it as a public safety office and things and what that look like. It's one of those things that we need the police department, but they need to be here, the side of the most police cars have, to protect and serve. We just want to make sure that they're serving the public that they're working with, and so we have to get this right. We have to get this right, because I do believe that we need one another. I've been volunteering and working with the Police Foundation to kind of help bridge that gap between the police department, in particular the community of color, because I think that was fractured after 2017. We need to rebuild that. Part of that was the Citizen Review Board. We're still kind of working to get that right. And we can look at those national norms to make them sure that we have those using best policy and practices. But we know that Charlottesville is unique. Charlottesville got its own thing going on. We have to make sure that it's in line with our values here in Charlottesville. And I found that out working on being on the school board, is that we value different things here in Charlottesville, and that we have to cater our policies, our personnel, to match what those values are. And man, in Charlottesville, as usual, we were on the front page. We're just going through this process, front page, and it's not pretty. But we have to do this. We have to get this right. We have to get a police department that's willing to serve the community, and that's that's what we're going through. And part of that is selecting the next police chief that's going to help move this relationship forward. And
Man, you guys got some heavy lifting coming up.
yeah, you're right.
You got really some heavy
I
lifting.
forgot all about that. We're just so much into the future land use map and
City manager,
City manager,
deputy city managers,
and
CEO of the police department.
And so it's a lot of work. But again, as everything happens, every once in a while, Brian and I will text each other and say, we're in it. We're, just kind of pepping each other up, And so I think I'm positive that we're ready for this. We're ready for this. There's some tough decisions to be made, but we're prepared for it. We're willing and ready to work with the existing city council. If we're elected, the public and the staff, they have to be a big part of this as well. It just seemed, I mentioned this to my wife, after the meeting, because I this was the meeting, I guess, last Monday. I had to go to bed I went to bed at 11:30, and they had,
They wrapped up at 1:30 or
yes,
something like that.
and so it was still going, and I was like, baby, it just looks like everyone on the screen needed a hug.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And everyone, and I wish I could have done that. And man, we just need to get to the point. Like, I believe our relationship is now that we are on the school board. Is that as we're moving forward and things and we're working, that we don't always get along, but we always respected one another, respected the and even when we're making some really tough decisions, that is vital.
So, gentlemen, I have to really thank you for doing this. Jerry's is firing, so I'm sure he has a couple more questions. But I wanted to jump in at this point and personally say thank you for doing this, because let's face it, this next board cycle, this next electric cycle, right, which is in the state of Virginia, we have one once a year. Mm-hmm. You guys are going to have to provide some serious leadership to go ahead.
Dude, I think this is the most important election in Charlottesville, Virginia history.
I would agree with that.
Literally.
And this is reason why it was important to get out your leadership style, the way that you make decisions on that end of it, because your guys, let's face it, more than likely you guys are going to be sitting in those seats next January 1, and it's important for folks to understand how you're going to think through these processes and move forward. So collaborative is what I'm hearing. Yeah. Collaboration is what I'm hearing, which I think is required. I know Jerry's got a bunch of stuff on the feed, but anything you guys want to jump in on that?
Collaboration and then decisiveness.
It's funny. Are you reading my notes?
No.
Okay.
But I am a huge believer in engaging as many stakeholders as possible, making people part of the solution, and particularly other folks on council building. I think relationships are like plants. You have to just keep watering them, and then when you need it, then you've built up some trust, and you can rely on that.
But are you two gentlemen ready to make these tough decisions? Because let's face it, half of the people are going to be happy with you, and maybe half won't.
Yeah.
But are you guys ready to make these tough decisions?
I think so, yeah. I mean, I would not have...
I know Juan with Diego is because I've sat in meetings with him where he made the tough decisions.
Yeah. So my process, particularly on the school board, of making really tough decisions, it's listening to the staff report. Usually we get some type of staff report, listening to the other board members, the public, and usually those are in the form of emails. We get people to come to the meetings. I usually do my reach out into the community, which is really deep and wide. If it's really, really big decision, I bounce it off the missus. And I pray.
Good for you.
I pray. And then I make it decisions. And you know what, Jerry and Keith, and sometimes I get it right, and sometimes I get it wrong. But you know what? I'm able to go to sleep because it's not because I wanted it to go
You did your
wrong.
homework. Sometimes
it doesn't work, but that is how I hope to be able to go through that process if I'm elected to city council, but that is, I believe that, and I want to be able to get a better process to get more input from the public than me reaching out to my different.
Juan Diego, thank you for
relationships.
going on the record for that, saying that, sometimes I might get it wrong.
Yeah.
Right?
right.
But you're going to put as much effort into it, and you're going to put the love and the faith that you have in it, Brian.
Yeah, and I think that's partly where I would ask the community to realize that, elected officials are fallible human beings. And I think that the city is fortunate to have, assuming the next, if the things go as we think they will, that the 5 people that will be there and the people that just left as well, or will be leaving, had the city's best interest at heart and are trying to lead with compassion, thoughtfulness, and effectiveness. And so I know that it's hard, particularly if a decision impacts an individual in a specific painful way, but I just would ask people's graciousness and willingness to, maybe this is too much to hope for, but I don't think so. People's willingness to, give elected officials the benefit of the doubt, because they are human and fallible. In this day and age of instant feedback on Twitter or whatever else, this belief people have that they should, what I'll call radical transparency, where every single thing is supposed to be dragged out into the open, that people would be willing to give us the benefit of the doubt and help Charlottesville be the place that we all know it can be. So.
Juan Diego, you want to add anything to that?
No, I concur.
Nicely done. Nicely done. All right, gentlemen, good show today. We appreciate you tuning into the program. Brian Pinkston, Juan Wade, these 2 candidates making a strong push, a very real push, I think these guys are going to be on council. I mean, we're going to cut to the chase here. Positive leaders, stakeholders in this community, committed to navigating the tumultuous waters that is Charlottesville City. And I think both in the last 90 minutes have proven their skill set, their empathy, their EQ, and their willingness to lead a city that we all love extremely, extremely much. Keith Smith, Brian Pinkston, Juan Wade. Gentlemen, I hope you guys get some sleep between now and the 2nd of November.
I think after the 1st of January, they won't get any sleep either. You got a tough.
Hopefully the meetings don't go to 1:30 anymore for all of us, especially us that are junkies for this stuff, that just watch from start to finish. Thank you kindly for joining us today.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Appreciate it.
Thank
Absolute
you, gentlemen.
pleasure.
Oh, by the way, love the tie.
Thank you.
I've been wanting to get that out the whole show.
Yeah.
Very good, guys. Thank you. You guys have a good day. We will see you in 50 minutes, guys, on the, 40 minutes on the I Love Seville show. Take care. Nicely done,
Thank
my
you.
friends. Nicely done.
Yeah.
Nicely done. Mics are off.
Thank you, gentlemen.